take pride in the details, take pride in the little things that you do to get through the day.
Welcome everyone to the Sports Business Podcast. Today, I'm joined with a really special guest. Today, we have Kyle Blaney. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Kyle, you played hockey in Canada. You played in the CIS or U Sports now for Ryerson, and now you are playing in the ECHL. And there's a bit of ups and downs with the pandemic. I'm sure we'll get into, but I think you had a great career, and I would love to dive into everything that you've gone through and what you've learned over your career from sports to business. So, welcome again to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
What are you doing nowadays?
I guess I'm a semi-retired hockey player right now. Obviously, COVID-19 hit everybody kind of differently. Some people are on their way out, getting back to everyday life. And some people are kind of stuck in the mud a little bit. Hockey's no different. Some teams are playing, some aren't. My team and organization elected to opt out due to COVID-19. It's a tough decision, but you have to respect it. At the end of the day, it is a business and safety is important. If that's the steps that they feel they needed to take in order to preserve the organization, then so be it. On the job hunt at the moment, back home in Canada, enjoying life as much as I can in this pandemic-filled world right now we're in.
So let's go back to Canada. So where did you grow up? Where did you play hockey? Where are you from?
I grew up in Burlington, Ontario. Parents from Ireland, two older brothers, both I drew inspiration from both of them playing hockey. That's how I got into it. They loved it. I was the younger brother following them around with the stick, and then grew up playing minor hockey in Burlington up until around 12, 13, and then started to play in a couple of different organizations. And then I ended up playing junior A hockey 15 minutes away in Oakville for the Oakville Blades. And from there, I went to Ryerson University to pursue education and continue hockey.
So walk me through your brothers and how did they inspire you? Did they play hockey as well, or were you the first one to play pro?
I was the first one to play pro. Both of them played hockey competitively growing up. That was probably my biggest draw of inspiration. Activity together on a day-to-day basis. We would always be playing hockey in the driveway. Me and my brother Ryan have a couple of good stories about getting stitches in the driveway. One time he hit me in the face with his stick because he wound up for a slap shot. And Mighty Ducks, the movies, the Disney movies, the guy with the big slap shot, Fulton Reed. And my brother goes up to the ball and says, "Look out, it's Fulton." And he winds up, and I was running up behind him to try and catch him. And he hit me in the face, split me open. And my mom grounds us for the week from March break playing hockey on the driveway. First game back. I just walked up behind him and just belted him with my stick. And I missed him and I got his ear, and he had to go get stitches behind his ear. So wow, just little things like that.
That's a one of a kind brotherly love that I haven't heard of before.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the little moments like that that make it so special that we had that bond growing up. And obviously seeing them play, and there's an age gap there. I'm the youngest. My oldest brother is 7 years older, and then my brother Ryan is 5 years older than me. So there's a lot of inspiration and a lot of monitoring, a lot of watching, a lot of observing as they got older, and the work and the higher the demand got, the more I was willing to do those things and make those sacrifices. And then as I get older, the opportunities become larger and larger, and I start to think to myself, oh, I can maybe, do something with this, if not make it all the way to the NHL, which is every kid in Canada who plays hockey. It's their dream, it's their goal. But as you go along the way on this career path, maybe your goals change, maybe your expectations change. It doesn't have to always be a negative, but it can be, just because there's an adjustment or a tweak to your goal doesn't mean that you can't feel that fulfillment, right? So I feel like I've definitely taken it to a point where I would be content if I was done. Which is all I ever asked for, was just the opportunity to see how far I could go. And it's been a huge chapter of my life, huge chunk of my life. I owe a lot to a lot of people, my parents, my brothers. It's been phenomenal. And it almost makes me more excited for what's next more than anything.
Well, when Ryan and your other brother and your parents watch this episode, I think it just goes to show the kind of support that your family has had on your progress. So,
Right.
I would like to thank them for you. I think every student athlete is only as successful as the support around him or her. That was for me, my parents and my sister and everybody else really, gave it their best to help me go forward. So I think for everybody listening out there, all the parents, everybody else who supports student athletes or pro athletes, dedicating this little few minutes to you guys. So thanks for everyone. Kyle, I was talking to your brother before this episode, and he was telling me how you went through a lot of ups and downs, right? So walk the viewers, whether it's student athletes or executives, whoever's watching, what did you go through? I know there was an instance where you got cut from the team and you became a leading scorer. So walk through what that looked like a few times. I think it's a pretty unique story.
Yeah, it's actually happened a couple times. It must be me, but so I'll start out in junior hockey. I always wanted to play. The Oakville Blades were 15 minutes from my house when I made the decision that I was going to pursue tier 2 junior A hockey and then pursue a scholarship or education, whereas some players will pursue major junior, so the OHL, the Q, and the WHL, because that's more of a direct path to the National Hockey League. I didn't really feel like I was in that development part of my life. I was not small, but I hadn't fully matured yet. So I felt like I was more comfortable playing tier 2, and there's this team, the Oakville Blades, and they were a pretty reputable organization at the time. They were winning a lot of championships. So that was my goal. I said, that's the team I want to play for. If I'm going to play tier 2, I want to play for the best team. So I went to a training camp and, hardest worker, just every day, day in, day out. And I ended up getting cut from that team and sent to play junior B in Elmira, which was a great experience. There was a huge silver lining. I learned a lot, but I ended up the next year, went back to the Oakville Blades and played 3 junior career there, and ended up being captain in my last year. Wow. So this segues now into, having a pretty decent junior career. I was talking to a couple of schools in the States, and it just didn't really pan out, either, financial or opportunity just never lined up. And Graham Wise at Ryerson University was pretty persistent in his pursuit of me to come play there. They had just set up the new arena at the Mattamy Athletic Center, the old Maple Leaf Gardens. So, and 45 minutes from my house. So anytime I get to play hockey in front of my family is something that's like so special to me. So I played my first season at Ryerson, and I didn't really achieve the goals that I had set out academically, and I was placed on academic probation, and with the risk of not being able to play the next year or even continuing with the education side. So this is my business acumen kicking in. I went online and I found a school directory for all the staff. It was for some event. And I ended up getting the president of the school, Sheldon Levy, who kind of built this entire program in a sense that it was his funding and his ideas and his inspiration that made Maple Leaf Gardens come back to life at Ryerson University. This was all his doing. Very influential person at the university, obviously very tough to get a hold of. So I just picked up the phone and I called them and I said, hey, here's my situation. I'm a varsity hockey player. I understand that I'm willing to enter into a contract on a probationary period, whatever I have to do to keep enjoying and keep pursuing this. I understand, and because coming from junior hockey to university, it can be a tough transition. If you don't take care of yourself, which I didn't, I wish I had known better now, but you're not reading, you're not doing those little tiny things that make your brain operate the way that you want. It's very tough to go from not reading and not writing for 2.5, 3 years to then all of a sudden you're picking up pen to paper. It is a talent. It is something that takes work. Studying is very difficult. You have to learn how you study. You have to learn what works for you maybe doesn't work for your teammate, but you're always with your teammate. Maybe the best thing for you to do is to not hang out with your teammate when you're studying because you get nothing done. So we end up having a pretty good conversation, and he says, okay, like, I'll admit you, like, I'll get you back in, which I assume was the push of a button for him. Fantastic. I don't even know if he would remember. I hope that this situation would stand out because I don't think that it happens every day. So I end up, I'm on top of the world, and all right, I got the education side down. Now it's time to focus on both the hockey and the education. And I ended up getting cut from the hockey team. I feel like
Wow.
maybe it had something to do with what I did. If I had ruffled some feathers, or it was just a tough look, because, you know, as a team and an organization within a school, you want to have a good GPA, you want to have good students, you want to have good people. Not to say that I'm not, but maybe it could have been a little bit of a damper within with the athletic director or anything. So ended up getting cut, and it was tough. It was a hard year. I got up to about, I'm like, I don't know, 5'8", 5'7", and I got up to about 218 pounds, big boy. And it was February of 2014, and I just said, I'm done with this. I'm going back. I hit the gym, and I about 40 over the summer. Ended up going back to tryouts, completely no expectations. Like, I'm just coming to try out. Whatever happens, happens. Didn't really have any dialogue with the coach. It was just one of those things where I wanted to go in, do my work, leave, feel fulfilled that I did the work, and whatever happens, happens. I ended up, he picked me, brought me back.
Wow.
I think I had a hat trick in my first game, which was awesome. And then, yeah, I ended up having a pretty good CIS career. It was, I met a lot of great guys, great teammates, guys that I still keep in touch with. So yeah, if I wasn't willing to, I would have lost out on a lot of valuable experience and a lot of life lessons, a lot of learning, had I just thrown in the towel.
Well, I think
I may have corrected the way that I went about things to a degree, but I would have missed out on all those lessons had I not just said, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes, and at least put the effort in and see where I get.
So I mean, you shared two examples, right? You shared the one in junior, same thing happened. You got cut, you worked out, you got better, you went back and you became a captain. Ryerson, you know, the bigger problem is balancing school and athletics. And I think your problem that you went through is very, very common. It's hard. I've been there.
Yeah.
And you were able to rise through both. So I think it's an inspiration for everybody watching, listening, that if you are a student athlete and you are feeling like you can keep up, you can. It just takes effort. But, you know, I think to drive more value here, Kyle, how did you, on both occasions, right, the junior hockey and also Ryerson, what was it that made you, pushed you to go back, other than just proving that, hey, you want to be in the team? And that's the first question. Second question is, what would you say was your X factor that allowed you to do that?
So I would say, well, actually, funny enough, it happened in pro hockey too. It happened 3 times. So
Okay.
When I left Ryerson to play professionally, like I said, it must be me. When I went to play professionally, I was playing Kalamazoo. I'll get through this one quick.
Yeah.
And I sign, and I'm nervous. I'm driving out of Kalamazoo. What is Kalamazoo? Beautiful town in Michigan. It's right between Chicago and Detroit. So you've got access to 2 major cities. It's a nice spot. There's a university there. I met my girlfriend in Kalamazoo. So it's been a great spot for me. I end up going, and I'm not playing that much. I'm getting a taste of pro hockey, and I'm kind of getting down on myself. And I say, we're going to Brampton. We're playing against the Beast. So again, I just touched on it. Playing in front of friends and family is super important to me. So I'm thinking to myself, as long as I get in the lineup, even if I play 4 minutes, I don't care. I get to play in front of my family, close to home. I get to see my family. This is going to be awesome. Coach calls me in. We got to make a roster move. Some guy came available. We're letting you go. The day we were traveling.
Yeah, you were traveling to go back to play in front of your family.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. And he's like, you know, you can stick around as long as you want. We're obviously going on the road. And I just was like, I packed up my stuff probably in 15 minutes and threw it in my car, drove home. I remember walking in my front door, and my mom thought that I was home for the game. And then she saw my car. And then it was, no, I got cut. So take the air out of the balloon a little bit. Yeah. And then, so I was home until about November. This happened at the end of October. And coach calls me back and says, you know, we're thinking about making a move. We haven't been on a good run. You know, the systems, you know, everything. And I said, yeah, that sounds good. I'm sure this call was a lot harder for you than it was for me. And we still like joke about it to this day, because we've obviously developed this unique relationship where now he's been my boss for 3.5 years since that date. I actually just talked to him this week just to touch base and reach out. So it's been funny, like going through that level of adversity and then maintaining the relationship as well, right, is super important, because it ended up being beneficial for both. And I think that we got a friendship out of it at the end of the day. But to touch on motivation, it's a support system, to be honest. It's when like I said, I got up to about 216, 218 pounds, not playing hockey. I wasn't exactly living the best life. And it was the motivation personally for me to say, I'm better than this. I'm not going to let this end like this. But it was also, I had a good support system. The more I became open and talking about it, being like, I want to do this. I want my family to have my back. I want you guys to support me. Like, I know I can do it, but I need to have that level of trust within the family, within friends, within relationships, because anytime you set a goal and you're vocal about it, there's a chance that you could get a scoff, a laugh, a critique, and not like critique is a bad thing.
Which impacts your output.
Yes,
it does
exactly. So
absolutely.
Somebody says the wrong thing to you on the wrong day, and you're like, well, maybe I can't do it. And then all of a sudden you're having conversations that you weren't even having before. So one of the biggest things and reasons why I went back was definitely I had to speak to, maybe there's situations where people who don't have that, if you're not vocal about, if you don't create a plan. My plan was very easy. It was black and white. It was get to the gym, get on the ice and work. It wasn't hard.
It's crazy how simple that is, but it works.
But yeah, it's hard, but it's simple.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all it is, right? Is just, you got to be willing to put the work in. If it's something you want, I feel like as you get older, the more experience you go through, the hard work can almost go out the window because you're dependent on your experience. So
this is, I just sorry to cut you off, Kyle, but I think this is an important point. This is my 30th episode, I think, that we're recording, or maybe 32nd. There's one, I ask the question all the time because everybody has a story. I always ask the question, hey, what allowed you to win? And I'm telling you, every single person who's been here, and I've had athletes such as yourself, I had executives for a Fortune 5 company, I've had people from all walks of life, and they all have the same answer, which is shut up and put in the work.
Right. That is the funny thing, is I feel like when I speak to a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it myself, I might not be a millionaire hockey player, but I feel like sometimes my tenure in the ECHL, 4 years in the same organization, going through the things that I went through with the staff, the coach cutting me, bringing me back, and us forging this kind of business friendship, can leave you feeling complacent if you're not careful. It can leave you forgetting about the work and feeling like you're entitled because you've done something for X, Y, and Z.
You've been there for X many years. Yeah, exactly.
So, but the thing is that there's always somebody chasing you. Because they don't have that yet. They want it. They want what you have. And if they're going to outwork you, you will lose.
There was a saying in our football days, and even training camp, that somebody's always working to get your spot.
Right.
And every year you have a bunch of younger, faster, stronger football players who are coming to take your spot.
Right.
The moment you think that you've made it, that's the day you lose. Which is the same in business and in sports, right?
Absolutely. Like the big thing from when you gain that experience, your work ethic shouldn't change. Work on the things that I am experienced at. I'm amplifying something that my competitor doesn't have. If I know little tools of little tricks, little tools of the trade, like, oh, guys in this league, they always do this. And all the defensemen, they do this. And this guy doesn't know that yet. So if I work on that, or goalies, they struggle with outside shots, or just in life in general, I know how to study. If I work on how I know how to study what works for me, then I'm already ahead of my competitor. But so if you draw the experience and you apply the effort towards the things that earned you that experience, I think that's a tremendous recipe for success. So,
and also I think it's the basics are what's going to give you the advantage, right? But doing it consistently is the hard part. Every single day, when you know you're the best, you still got to do it. Just like Kobe Bryant would do it. I had Alan Stein. He is a NBA performance coach on the podcast as well, and he shares a story on he's a keynote speaker, and the story he shares is that he asked Kobe, why is he the best player? And Kobe's like, why do you think I'm the best player? It's because I do the basics every single day.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a huge example that I think everybody should live by. And, in your case, that is probably what, the putting in the work is what allowed you to come back 3 times, which is unheard of.
It's funny, like, and my favorite part is just, it's all with the same organization or set of people, right? There was never any, it wasn't like I got cut from a team and then I went to a different team and ended up prospering. And it was, I went back to the same, I got in the same ring with the same opponent.
That's a really good thing, Kyle. Let's jump into that. He also, the third example you shared was you had a good, relationship with your coach now. So let's talk about relationships in sports, right? I know you've met a lot of great players. You went back to the same organization that cut you, and in every single case. What have you learned about people and relationships in sports, and how have you gotten stronger at those as you played?
I would say almost playing with my brothers and having, like I said, I was an observant youth because I was, as the youngest, you're always looking up. We were looking up to somebody, you're drawing inspiration, you want to almost mimic. So I'm used to observing. And I feel like one of the things that I definitely learned the most from playing hockey is you get to watch people. For instance, my coach in Kalamazoo, Nick Booland, I have known him for 3.5 years. So when a new player comes in and talks to me and says, Booter's not playing me, or Booter said this to me, what do you think he means? Like, do you think that he's like mad? Or they're asking me or another veteran on the team because we observe him day to day, and I can draw from experience and be like, well, 2 years ago, he kind of did this similar thing to a different guy. So I think he's testing you. He's, stuff like that. But on a day-to-day basis, you can learn a lot just observing. You observe, how somebody deals with wins and losses in regards to dealing with a group of people, a group of young men who have their own separate lives, separate families, right? So you get to watch the coach come in and how he addresses you after a loss, after a win, how he addresses certain personalities, how he handles certain, for lack of a better term, egos, how he communicates with each player differently, who he takes time to, if somebody's struggling, it's not a secret, especially if it's somebody with high expectations. Like, for instance, if I was struggling and I didn't have a point in 9 games, that's no secret. I'm not doing well. Maybe his approach to me changes and I'm observant enough to pick up on this. And then I don't exactly have it all pen to paper, but it's that life experience that getting cut and going through each instance was definitely different, but there's parallels in regards to the learning experience that came with it, as far as human interaction on a day-to-day basis that would set you up for success, essentially.
The way you mentioned your coach would treat you differently than somebody else if you were struggling, for example, hypothetically, right? I think businesses can learn a lot because good leaders that even I have reported into, they knew on the football side and the business side, they knew how to tailor how they managed me versus somebody else based on my strengths. So they knew that Tanvir is driven by this. Tanvir works best under these circumstances. Tanvir is not doing the best, perhaps, these 2 games, or he failed a project. This is how we're going to motivate him versus somebody else. And that, what you're telling me is you're observing that by seeing your coach do that to you. So there's a concept that I always talk about. It's called, in today's world, you are not going to have the time to make all the mistakes and learn because we're moving so much faster. So I would like you to touch on the concept of learning from those who are in front of you. And you did this by watching your brothers, being observant, and also by watching your coach. Because a lot of people will sit on the sidelines and not pay attention. But if you've paid attention, now you're learning the same things that they were emulating that you've already learned without even doing them. I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, it's observing it is very easy. It's being able to draw. It's being willing to listen almost, right? Because it would be very easy for me to see my coach or an employer, or you can get jealous. You can let negative emotions sink in. If I see somebody getting special treatment, then maybe I'm like, well, why don't I get treated like that? Like that he's coddling him. Like, but it's because maybe he doesn't handle criticism as well as you. Maybe he doesn't have like tough ears like you do, or thick skin, or whatever way you want to put it. Right. So it's the willingness to be able to listen, because if you want to listen, it means you want to learn. And then once you do that, you're completely objective. And it's mesmerizing to see the amount of every person's brain on the planet is wired differently, no matter what. Mm-hmm. Even if they're 99% compatible, there will be one wire that is mixed, that is crossed the other way than another. Right. So why would you deal with everybody the same way? In my experience, if I was struggling, my coach would be more likely to call me into his office and ask, is everything okay in my life? Because we have that personal foundation. He knows what I'm capable of. And now it's at a point where it's like, okay, like, is everything okay? Like, let's forget about hockey, because hockey's not working for you right now. Is everything all right? And then all of a sudden, maybe we're having a completely different conversation. And that actually helps me. But it's because we have that foundational relationship. He was willing to listen. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to go in and have the meeting and be vulnerable and be open, because we have that foundational trust, right? So observing, learning are all key things. But I would say one of the biggest motivating factors is idols, right? So people that you watch in the media, people you get to observe day to day. My brother is a tremendous example of that. Like, my brother has been probably more successful than he even anticipated, but he puts the work in. I see it every day. He puts the work in and this goes for both my brothers. There's a parallel here, because my oldest brother, Mark, he works in the government, and my brother, Ryan, works in sales. Obviously I'm probably more of a sales guy than a government job. So, I would say watching him work, watching him day to day as a father, watching him day to day in sales, watching him day to day as a colleague or coworker, he's constantly doing something. So when you draw inspiration from that, and that's where the bar is set, that's a good bar to have, because you're not looking at the glitz and the glamour on social media and like, oh, look what Ryan got, or look at how well Ryan's doing, or look at Tanvir. Tanvir's got a podcast. Like, he's great. Like, he's doing awesome. And it's like, when you connect and you idolize or you observe the correct people, you can form your own recipe for how you want to succeed and how you feel like you're going to achieve that success. So when I watch people, I love to watch people who just work. Like, even if you're cooking, like, just do it diligently, do it right, do it well, do the details. You got to do the details. Even if it's putting salt in water for boiling, you got to do it. Like, so idolization is important as well. And having the right characters to follow is definitely something that I value.
So, I mean, you jogged a memory in my mind right now, Kyle, and I'm going to share a story where when you say idolizing, it doesn't mean it has to be idol. You have to idolize somebody who is who you know personally, or somebody that is very successful. So, for example, in 2015, November, I think it was October, I was trying to figure out some stuff in my life. You know, what do I do next? Where should I go? Trying to get my career path sorted out. And I remember, and I still love doing this anytime I get a chance. I remember going to a CFL game. And I'm in the CFL game. We go early, 30, 40 minutes early, to watch the players warm up, right? And I'm watching these guys warm up and just looking at the attention to detail. There's one guy who was just dancing, and he was just doing all the small steps, the footwork, the turns, intensity, catching the ball. And you can just tell that this guy is in the zone. And that's who you want to be emulating. That's who you want to actually be saying, I want to be at the level of commitment as this guy. That feeling that I took from that earlier 30 minutes before the game started, that stuck with me. And that was something that actually helped me find the next thing in my life. And it was, so I don't even know who the guy was. Just
Mhm.
one Ticats player who was just warming up like the best. He loves what he's doing, and he's just going through every single detail that he can, the best of his ability. And that lesson, I think, is so huge for anyone. So if you can find inspiration and idolize the right things, the right people, the right systems, it will absolutely take you a long way. You've seen it, and I've seen it myself.
Yeah, the one thing too is that I find is so critical is being able to experience those things. Don't be afraid to, for instance, you go to a CFL game. That's a great place to observe a setting that you're familiar with, where you can draw inspiration from. Maybe even if it's in the fourth quarter and there's a game-winning drive, you can be like, "Oh, that was a hell of an effort. Like that was good to see the team come together." And I'll never forget 2004 World Cup of Hockey, Air Canada Center, and it was me and my brothers, and we went for warm-ups and for the game, obviously, as well. And Mario Lemieux is there, and he's stretching, and I'm as close as I am to this camera to Mario Lemieux through the glass. And Marty St. Louis is stretching next to him. And Marty St. Louis, a tremendous NHL career, smaller player. So somebody that I would draw inspiration from being a smaller player. And I just remember looking at Martin St. Louis stretching next to Mario Lemieux, arguably one of the greatest ever. And his legs were half the size of Mario Lemieux's. Like it looked like Mario stretching next to Bowser. So that was huge for me to see that, because I knew that he was a smaller guy, but to see the difference, and then as you grow up and you start to play a higher level, like this was 2004. So I was 13 years old. Then as you grow up and you see that this is real, I've played against some big boys, and you know what it's like you see, like, you're like, oh man, like I'm in it. But when you get out there, you realize that you're both competing at the same thing and you're both there for a reason. But going to those places and connecting, you get to the opportunity to connect with people like that, people who are in your situation or in that circle or something that you draw inspiration from, can be a huge motivator.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it goes to show that, how you've used motivation, how you've used idolizing someone, how you've used the ability to just never give up. You've beaten the odds 3 times. So I think that's everybody watching and listening. I mean, the whole point of this podcast is to show how you can leverage some of these small principles that, whether you're struggling with in business or sports, in this case, Kyle in hockey career, how powerful these small principles are. So Kyle, thanks for sharing. It was an awesome to have you on and really showcase and being honest and humble, right? I think that's what it's about. So thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to share.
Just one last question before we end the podcast. Any advice or a few sentences for student athletes right now that maybe did not play their last season, now have to graduate? Any advice on transitioning into the real world?
Find a way to get excited about it. If you're going to be a garbage man, be the best garbage man there is. Enjoy every minute enjoy the experience. Take pride in the details. Take pride in the little things that you do to get through the day. Take pride in being the best that there is, or wanting to be the best there is. I would say that's the biggest thing for me right now. Looking like the clock is kind of struck midnight on hockey. The opportunities in front of me are what excite me. The opportunities, and I've been chasing the same goal and doing the same thing for about 25 years. So yeah. I'm excited for the opportunity to now see what is next for me, what I'm capable of, to set a new set of goals and pursue those. Right. So get excited about it. It sucks. It's never gonna, there's especially student athletes, there's maybe 1 to 2 in each major sport who retire on their terms. Everybody else gets forced out somehow, or they didn't win the Super Bowl, they didn't win the Stanley Cup, or they didn't win the World Series. Yeah. They didn't get the goal that they actually wanted, but they had to make the decision, like, it's time, like, I'm done. maybe Wayne Gretzky, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, guys like that are the outliers. Everybody else, eventually you will run out of time. So get excited about it and find a way to do the details and do the details the right way.
Awesome. Great advice. Well, hey, Kyle, thanks again for jumping on, man. It was a pleasure having you. And all the best in 2021. Can't wait to see where you go in your corporate career with all these great learnings that you have from sports. So really excited for you and best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care. Thanks.
Team, remember to like, subscribe, and share with a friend, and visit tanveervango.com for a ton of free content and exercises.